Our lead in the NBA comes from the bubble, inside the bubble, the Western Conference. That's the late game, so we'll focus on that for the time we have allotted to talk about the NBA. If you did not watch, Anthony Davis, 34 points, 10 rebounds, and the Lakers had to come from behind. They had a big lead early in the first half, had a 21-point lead, had to storm back in the fourth quarter. They did most of that early on in the fourth quarter, and they beat the Rockets in Game 2 of the Western Conference semifinals. So after losing Game 1, that is what's known as a must-win situation. But that's not the headline. That's not the headline here. It was the vanishing act of one Russell Westbrook, the fellow MVP of years gone past in the NBA, that really stood out. Westbrook had 10 points, 7 turnovers, and he was 4 of 15 from the floor. And that only tells you part of the story. He also had several breakdowns defensively where he wasn't even trying to play defense. And the way you can describe this, it was a poop fest is what it was for Russell Westbrook. So let us discuss the question. How concerned should the Rockets be with Russell Westbrook? We know his reputation, playoff Russ, and how he had done these type of things. You don't want him on the court, late game situations. He'll make the wrong decision. So on the Maller scale of worry, 1 to 10, with 10 being, oh my God, this is the worst, I'm at a 9. I am at a 9 with Russell Westbrook. This was a brass ring opportunity. I don't want to undersell this. You have a chance to take a 2-0 series lead. The series is not over if the Rockets had indeed won this game, but you certainly continue to crank up the pressure on the Lakers after the Rockets came out in Game 1 and poleaxed the Lakers to take the 1-0 series lead. And even in this game, I was not impressed with L.A. I was not. Houston was going through the motions in the first half. They fell behind by as many as 21 points, and they were just not there. Most of that the first quarter. And then entering the third quarter, they go turbo-tastic, and it's turbo time. And they actually ended up with the lead. They knocked down a bunch of money balls, the Rockets did, as they are known to do. And they went into the fourth quarter with the lead. And then the rug pulled out from underneath them by their own guy, Russell Westbrook. Westbrook, in these playoff games, and certainly in this game for Houston, Russell Westbrook is the racehorse who fades down the stretch. Right? He looks like a thoroughbred, but runs out of energy like a fat kid running a marathon. It just doesn't go well. And in the final period, Russell Westbrook had 3 points. That's it. He had 3 total points, and he made 1 of 5 from the floor. That's right. He also had a couple of turnovers to complete the terrible performance, the poop fest performance, if you will, as we have been saying here for Russell Westbrook. And friends, and there was just no real ball movement consistently, horrible shooting. Westbrook had no assists. The Rockets had 2, as we point out there in the fourth quarter. Now, the second thing, the Lakers figured out, and I don't know why they didn't figure this out in Game 1, but they figured out before Game 2 that Russell Westbrook is the weakest link. Now, they rightfully do not respect his ability to shoot because he is not a consistently good perimeter player. So, in this particular game, for wide stretches of the game, the Lakers are like, I will leave Russell Westbrook wide open and let him become a Freemason and just lay the bricks one after another. And there's a memo that should be sent out, and it's not just Russell Westbrook, but we see this all the time with certain players in the NBA. If you are wide open, you are left wide open for a reason. The other team would like you to shoot the ball. And Russell Westbrook, it was social distancing is what it was with Westbrook when the Lakers were on defense. They're like, okay, fine. And then if you were to drive to the basket, the other thing that you do with Russell Westbrook is you swarm him as he gets closer to the basket, which you say is just standard basketball. It's what you're supposed to play defensively. You swarm the guy. But in the case of Russell Westbrook, we have seen it so many times where he drives to the basket, right? And everyone closes in on him defensively. They close in on Russell Westbrook defensively. And then they force him to make a decision, which is often a careless decision, where he throws the ball away and it bounces off the leg or the arm of a teammate. And then that obviously leads often to turnovers and mistakes. And then the Rockets are even further in the woods, if you will. Now, seeing a wounded bear, and that's what the Rockets and Russell Westbrook were in this particular game. LeBron James, and I don't know if it was him. I assume he's coaching the team, and Frank Vogel's just along for the ride. But whoever's in charge there, continually calling out for LeBron to go against Russell Westbrook. What I mean by it is Russell Westbrook would be guarding somebody else, and then they would call in whoever Russell Westbrook was guarding, his guy, to set the screen, and not to get two X's and O's on you. But the reason why you would do that at the beginning of the fourth quarter is because LeBron knew that if you bring in the teammate that Russell Westbrook is supposed to guard, and then there's a switch, Westbrook is no obstacle defensively. Now, part of it was because he had foul troubles, but he was just passive. The Rockets, defensively, they're not going to win anything because of their defense. They're going to have to knock down a bunch of three-point shots, but at least put some effort into it. At least put some gusto into that, some enthusiasm. And Russell Westbrook, and he admitted as much after the game, he just was lost, completely lost. He was not only a basketball player, he was awful on this night. And it's not bird watching, it's ball watching. You got to be proactive. You can't be reactive, and that's the difference. And now the Rockets, instead of being up 2-0 and looking pretty good and feeling their oats, they're squared up at 1-1. Now, James Harden, he did not seem all that concerned after the game. Harden, when asked about Russell Westbrook and his lousy play, we're at a 9 if you're late to the party. We're at a 9 on the Maller scale of worry. Well, James Harden, of course, can't admit that. And when asked about all this, he said, Russ will be fine. He's great. We're not worried about him. Close quote. Pointed out that even if the shots aren't falling, according to James Harden, that Westbrook can certainly impact the game with defense and playmaking. Of course, in theory, that is true, but in actual execution, it is not. It leaves a lot to be desired. And when Russell Westbrook's shot is not falling, and this is like a lot of guys in the NBA, but it's to the 10th degree with Russell Westbrook. When he's not making the shot, he starts the pouting and the sulking. And you know he's got the inner temper tantrum that's working there with Russell Westbrook. All right, last word on this. So it is not just this particular series that has been problematic. Yes, the Houston Rockets did beat Oklahoma City, and for that, congratulations, in a 7-game series. But ever since the playoffs started, the Rockets have not gotten dominance from Russell Westbrook. They have not, right? This is being billed. And if you look at the headlines on the Rockets, it's the two MVPs, the two-headed monster, James Harden and Russell Westbrook. Well, Russell Westbrook has been providing bagged manure more than he has not in the playoffs, and through the playoff performances. Now, Westbrook missed a couple of games against Oklahoma City, so you got to factor that in. But through 5 playoff games, he is shooting 39% from the floor, which looks really good compared to the less than 17% that Russell Westbrook is converting on three-point shots. You heard that correctly. Russell Westbrook from downtown is shooting 16.7% from three-point range in the postseason. Yeah. Well, it gets even better. How about the foul shooting? Russell Westbrook has been Shaquille O'Neal-like, shooting less than 50% from the charity stripe. So he is averaging 15 points a game and 8 rebounds a game. He has 22 assists in 5 games, Westbrook does. Yeah. No, it gets better. 22 assists and 21 turnovers for Russell Westbrook. Now, that is not going to get it done. You do not have to be some kind of NBA insider to know that is not good. Now, I have advice, because I'm an answers guy. You got a problem, you got to come up with a solution. So my advice to Mike D'Antoni is to give the Lakers a dose of their own medicine, right? And Houston needs to do a better job of figuring out a way to put a bullseye on LeBron James' back defensively and attack LeBron James. Like, all the guys in the Rockets are about the same size. Now, a couple of them stand out, but if you go after the eye of the tiger, LeBron James, you attack him, make Burger King James work on defense. There are 3 outcomes. 2 of them are in favor of the Rockets if you do that. Now, one of them is LeBron gets into foul trouble by reaching. That's hard to do because the officials normally swallow the whistle because they want to leave LeBron out there. That's one possibility. Let's say he starts reaching for the ball, gets into foul trouble. The second possibility is LeBron, who's an older player, physically gets drained, and then that affects him on the offensive end, so that's a net positive for the Rockets. Now, the third outcome would be LeBron actually plays great defense, is focused on every position, or possession rather, and then that backfires on the Rockets. But typically, LeBron, even going back to his salad days in Cleveland, he'll cherry pick a couple of spots defensively, get a big block or a steal or something like that, a few highlight film plays. The rest of the time, he's a spectator. He's just checking it out. So that is my 10-cent advice to Mike D'Antoni and the Rockets, who could and should and would have been up 2-0, but we're not playing the coulda, woulda, shoulda game. No, we are not.